So welcome. I am Rebecca Goldberg. I'm the executive director of the Berkeley Institute for Jewish Law and Israel Studies, and I'm particularly pleased to welcome you here for a very special event, very much a last-minute opportunity that we grabbed wholeheartedly. And so before I say a few words about that, and I welcome Dr. Ruth Calderon, I just want to flag, this is our last public program of the fall semester, so we're going out with a big splash. But we also, there should be some flyers around. We also have a number of programs going on in the spring, so please take a look at those and come back in the spring. We have a number of events here and some others that are still in the works. I won't spend time talking about those. The only one which may be wrong in the flyers on your seat are that Susanna Heschel is going to be coming on April 12th. Rather than April 14th. So I want to flag that. So I want to welcome Dr. Ruth Calderon, who many of you already know. We are very lucky to have her. We had hoped to host her last spring, and we got many, many emails of disappointment when she wasn't coming. So we're very excited to have her back tonight, and we hope to have her back again in the future with more notice and to circulate to an even bigger audience. But I'm amazed to have all of you here tonight. Dr. Ruth Calderon is one of Israel's leading figures, spearheading efforts to revive Hebrew culture and a pluralistic Israeli Jewish identity, in part through the popularization of the study of Talmud. In 1989, Dr. Calderon co-established Elul, based in Jerusalem, the first Beit Midrash in which secular and religious women and men studied together and taught together. In 1996, she founded Alma in Tel Aviv, a Jewish liberal arts program for advanced learning. Dr. Calderon is also an author, the author of A Bride for One Night, a personal homiletic reading of Talmudic legends, and also Talmudic Alpha Beta. From 2013 to 2015, Dr. Calderon was also a Knesset member from the Yesh Atid party, where she was deputy speaker, member of the Education and State Control Committees, and also chairperson of the Lobby for Jewish Renewal. She is on the faculty of Shalom Hartman Institute, which is one way that we're able to host her tonight. And she holds a Master of Arts and a PhD in Talmud from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Tonight she will be speaking on the topic From Secular Judaism to Jewish Renewal in Israel, a personal story and a public point of view, which she knows from a very personal perspective. So please welcome her with me. And I will also note just that you saw in the announcements for Ruth Calderon that today is also the Big Give at UC Berkeley, going on, I think, until 9 p.m. tonight. So if you're excited about our programs, please note that today is the Big Give. So thank you. Please welcome Dr. Ruth Calderon.
Thank you, Toda Rabba. Thank you, Rebecca. Rebecca is my grandmother's name from Turkey. And I apologize to all of you and to you that I disappointed you last year, but I really could not come. And I'm so happy to be here tonight, and I am also thrilled that so many of you are here. And the ones I met over the food, I was happy to know, and I'm beginning to understand who I am with. When somebody introduces you in America, it's something that in Israel, only if you die, they will you have a chance that so many good things will be said about you. So it's a very good feeling. I do want to share with you some of my personal story, and through that, share what I think is happening now in Israel. Maybe a little bit about the way I see what's going on here with the very strong Israeli-American community that is being built, and the relationship between the Israeli Americans and the Jewish senior Americans that were born here. And I'll also try to connect my educational work to political work, and I believe and I think or I feel that it's one spectrum, and that I always say, and I really think that I work only for one boss, whether he exists or doesn't exist. And I always do the same work. I read when I was very young, Buber's, איך אומרים את זה בעברית? No, it's not a book, it's like a little booklet, דרכו של האדם על פי תורת החסידות. The human's way according to Hasidut. And he says there that when God asked Adam, Ayeka, where are you? It's not something that God asked Adam, but something that we are asked every moment of our life. Where are you? What are you doing with your life? And I read it when I was before the army, I think. And Buber goes on and says there that the Hasidut believes that each one of us has a role in life, and we should find out what it is and do it. And I think since then, I really do think that I have a job by that boss. I have difficulty to work with other bosses. That's why I always establish places, because I don't like getting orders from anyone else, but the one boss who is a very easy boss, doesn't speak to us much. And so I'll try to explain through my story what I think my job is and how I'm trying to do it and how it's connected to all the other things. So I was brought up, I still live in the same apartment in Maoz Aviv, in Tel Aviv, north of Tel Aviv. It's like a project of buildings the same, and everybody has the same apartment. So you could go to one of your friends' home and you know exactly where everything is, because it's exactly the same as in your home. It is a kind of a project that Ben-Gurion built for officers that are coming out of the army in 48, 49. And so the people were very military and kind of heroes. The more important soldiers or officers, higher officers, got houses in Tzahala or in Afeka, like better neighborhoods, but we were like the more simple officers. And my father wasn't even an officer, he was a private to his last day in the army. He was a very funny kind of soldier. It is not the height of his career in the world. He had a Davidka, kind of a thing that you are supposed to fire, but he was afraid that it will blow up, so he tried not to use it. He has funny stories from 48. But he got permission to live in this project, and so I was raised in a primary school called Magen, Shield, and the street is called Mivtza Kadesh, by the war, like a very patriotic Israeli neighborhood. And I really bought into that and liked it, and we traveled the country like Israelis do. You have to go up all the mountains and jump all the waterfalls, and it's like a kind of a long summer camp that never ends until you're 50. And you know all the names of the birds, and you know all the different flowers. There was a lot of effort to feel that we are at home. Although all the parents, or my parents, spoke with very strong accents that are not Israeli, but there was a wish and a determination or a dream to be the new Jew, the Israeli Jew, that is suntanned and free and strong and knows the country and so on. And I believe in that. I'm a Zionist. I like it. I danced Israeli dances and I did all the trips, and in the army I was leading tours like that, and everything was, and we read a lot of Israeli fiction and poetry, and we know all the songs by heart. It's in some ways for us in the secular Israeli majority, this is in some ways our prayer book. When people sit together and sing, and everybody knows the lyrics of all the songs, it's a kind of a content or culture that was very clear. But while I was raised like that and loved it, I felt something is missing. I felt something, it's not the whole story. And I think it became even stronger when we went to a sabbatical. My father was specialized in storage of wheat and corn and agricultural products. And so we would spend a year in places where they have a lot of wheat or corn or rice. So we spent a year in Canberra, Australia, and a year in Savannah, Georgia, in places with big silos. And that's what my dad did, and I was sent to school. And I was in Canberra High School. I was, in Australia, the only Jewish kid in school, and the only Israeli, of course. And the kids in school started asking me questions about Israel and about Judaism, and I realized that I know very little. I'm very patriotic, and I feel that it's a very big part of myself. But especially questions about Judaism, I could answer about Bible, because we learned in the public school in Israel a lot of Bible. But the concept was from Tanakh, from the Bible, Lapalmach. From the Bible to 48, from King David to David Ben Gurion. And there's a lip that they intentionally built above or around rabbinic literature. So we studied Bible, but we did not study Mishnah, Talmud, Kabbalah, Hasidut, or anything that happened in the diaspora. It's like there was the ancient Israel, then there was a little bit of a mistake, and then there was again the state of Israel. And I think they thought that if we would study rabbinics, that is such a dominant part, if not the most important part of creative Jewish culture, that it's viral, that we will catch the virus and we will become rabbinic. And so we weren't exposed to it. And after we came back from Australia, I was only 15, but I felt that I want to fill in that hole, that kind of something lacking, something that I feel is important to me, but I don't know anything about it, and my parents don't know much about it. They were much more Jewish. I mean, I grew up in a very Israeli context, Israeli as opposed to Jewish. My parents were much more Jewish. My mom came from Germany, and I felt that she was a Hasidic of sorts, secular, but spiritually Hasidic. And my father came from Bulgaria, and he was Sephardi, and he was more traditional and had a lot of respect and loyalty to something that he didn't really know. So there was a lot of ignorance, but a lot of love. And I think children sense what is important for the parents, even if the parents don't exactly know what it is. Many times I think we are fulfilling dreams of our parents. Many times you see someone making aliyah to Israel and you think, what happened to him? And if you scratch his parents, you can find out. Or someone goes to study music or medicine, and it's many times, I feel that a person is not just has a life of 120 years, but we begin with our grandparents and we go on to our children, because one human being's biography is not enough for the story to unfold. So anyway, I felt that for them it's very loved or important, but I really didn't know where to find anything about it. And I also knew that the Israel that I was growing up I was born in 61, but in the 70s when I was a teenager, the options were very binary. איך אומרים in English? No. Binary? Either or. Thank you. Either you're an Israeli or you're a Jew. Either you're religious or you're secular. There was nothing in between. If you're secular, and I belong to the secular community, then you have nothing to do with these texts, with the great books of Jewish literature. And if you want to study those texts, you have to get dressed differently and speak differently and eat differently, and you move to the other community. There was nothing in between. There was nothing more in the Sephardi side of my father. They're more traditional and they're much more flexible. There's much more humor and kind of easy air. But the Ashkenazi side is very, either you're this or you're that. And the secular revolution was very strong in Israel, and It's not ours. It's something old and primitive, and the world is going to modernity and to humanities and democracy and feminism, and we're not going back there. I couldn't accept that. First of all, I get bored when I'm with people that are exactly like me. I like being with different people because it enables the road not taken by me to have a voice. But also I felt it's narrow to be only this or only that. And I wanted to study Torah. Later I understood that what I really want is to study Talmud. Talmud is what only the boys study. And I had two big brothers, and I always tried to do what the boys do, because in the Sephardic family that I grew up in, it was very clear what boys do and what girls do. They have to study something serious, and we have to learn how to make burekas and feed them. And I wouldn't have that, and I always wanted to. It was the feminist urge that I felt from my mother, but she wasn't able to act on it. And when I went to school and when I had my PhD, I felt that she is on my shoulder, and that, or when I'm traveling, he always was waiting for my father. He always traveled, and she was waiting at home, a bit jealous. He was very harpatkanit. He was very adventurous, and he was not at all, but he got to travel all the time to Africa and to South America, and she was at home getting the postcards. And so I'm much more like my father, but I get to travel a lot, so at least I feel that my mother is, they both passed away many years ago. I feel that she's with me. So the feminist drive to not agree to stay where you're supposed to stay and try to break grounds and go to where the power is the same urge that I felt as a secular person, that I'm not willing to stay where I'm supposed to be, and I want to go to where the power is in Judaism, and that is the people who study Talmud are the people that make the decisions. That's where it's like, I don't know, in real life politics maybe, or the people who are holding the big money, or the people that are holding the big power. In my understanding, in Judaism, the people that study and have the knowledge, that's where the power is. And I was curious. I was attracted, I was passionate, but I didn't know exactly how to get there. You know, I watched the film Yentl, but I looked at myself and I thought that will not work. I can't dress as a man and get into a Haredi yeshiva, but it really intrigued me. That world inside, the way they study, that is not academic and you just get lectures, but something very, very passionate, very personal. Torah Lishma. I wanted that kind of study. That really drew me. I didn't know how to get there. I knew that world is not waiting for me. They're not going to invite me in. I would walk in Mea Shearim and try to look inside the doors of the big yeshivot, but was never invited in. So I thought I have to find another path. And I felt like a bird that is looking for pieces of material to build my nest, because there was no movement or school or place of people like me. I felt like the ugly duckling, that you feel that you are wrong. That in this flock you don't fit, and in this flock you don't fit. You're like something else. So I looked for places. Wherever I went to study, there were places to study Torah, even for women, but there were always places that want to manipulate you, fix you, correct you, לקרב אותך, to bring you near, לחזק אותך, to strengthen you. They have all kinds of verbs of what they want to do to you. But I didn't want to get fixed or changed or strengthened, or I wanted to just study. I knew that it's mine. It's not theirs to decide what I have to do in order to study. It's mine. I remember, that might be my mother's Hasidic background. I remember standing at Mount Sinai, receiving the Torah with everyone. I remember the people that I couldn't see because they were so tall in front of me. So if we were all in Sinai, it belongs to me just as much as it belongs to them, and I'm not going to sign up for some kind of bottom line before I start studying. If something will happen to me, I don't have any התנגדות, objection to change, but I'm not willing to decide on the way that I'll change before I start studying. So in short, I didn't find a place to study. I did go to university. I left Tel Aviv and I went to the north, to Oranim, which is a kibbutz movement university. And I did study I opened the Talmud for the first time and fell completely in love. I thought I'll only do it for a year to not feel so ignorant, but I couldn't stop and I went on. From there, I went up to Jerusalem. You know, the Talmud department in Jerusalem is very famous, and I had an amazing many years there. In the Talmud department in Jerusalem, less than 12 years is not serious in doing your PhD. You have to be marinated in the text for at least 10 years, and then they start talking to you. I think it's even more so if you are a woman, and it's even more so if you're from Tel Aviv. Like, well, you have to see that you really get it. They were very nice and very kind to me. I was the only one in class without a beard, and it was very special. I learned a lot, but most of what I learned in Jerusalem, in the university, was philology, was whether the text is really from Babylon or is it originally from Palestine, and is the Vav actually a Yud that someone, and there was a glossa there. Okay, so now I know how to look at manuscripts, and I can easily tell if it's a genuine, not easily. Nothing there was easy, but I can tell if a manuscript is genuine and if this is Yerushalmi or Bavli, and I found something I found something that they liked because I had a way to show if it's really from Eretz Israel or from Babylon. But that did not, how do you say it? It did not feed my hunger. I don't know how to say it in thirst, because I think about it as thirst. It's like my father would say, we went to the sea and we came back thirsty. I was at the sea, I could drink the whole Talmud, but it did not give me what I wanted. I didn't want to just investigate it. I didn't want to be far away from it as a scholar in this clean and cold way and look at it as material, as if it's the Chinese or Greek material of great books. I wanted to be in it. I wanted to be immersed in it. I wanted to study my life through it. And that is not what you do in university. Maybe in Berkeley, but not in Jerusalem. And rightly so. That's not the work of academics. So I understood I needed something else. And David Hartman was then at the Hartman Institute, and he accepted me to the Bet Midrash. That was the first time that I didn't see Bet Midrash in a film or outside in Mea Shearim, but actually was admitted to a real Bet Midrash every day. I don't remember how many hours. We studied. I had a Chevruta, Melila Hellner. She's now a wonderful scholar of Kabbalah. And I started doing the mileage. I knew that in order to understand the Talmud, you can't learn about it. You have to do enough mileage to read the whole, to have it on your tongue, to have it in your memory, to dream it, to take it in order to really understand it. And I was very happy and full of it. And also I felt like I found treasures, or like Ali Baba and the 40, that you go into a cave and you find this amazing treasure and you want to take it back to your people and tell people about it. Because nobody in my life, the people I grew up with, became the leading writers, authors, poets, theater directors, or Labriut, bless you, television people and so on. writing in the papers, they have no idea that this exists. And I wanted to make some kind of connection between the secular Israel of Tel Aviv that is really building the language of what Israeli culture is, and what I found. And so I was at Hartman for a few years, but still, even there, and I'm grateful all my life to this experience and to his welcoming and all the teachers there, but even there, I knew that I'm the secular woman that will never teach Talmud 101. I will never be the teacher. I'm always, you can show such a thing to the donors, but this is not, I will not be in the ones making decisions. And I am a Zionist in the way that I want to be responsible for where I live. I'm not a visitor in Judaism. I'm not a guest. I'm at home. And in order to be at home, you have to be in a place where you take part in decision making and in responsibility. Authority comes with responsibility. And we went out of Hartman and we built Elul, Moti Baror from the Yeshiva of Gush Etzion and myself, and we ran it together for some 7 years until the Rabin assassination. And I didn't realize then, because it was really a very personal thing, and I didn't think that I'm doing something bigger than the group that worked with me, but it was the first time, I think, in the world that secular people ran an institution of Jewish study and did not come to be affected by it, but took responsibility on the curriculum and what the library looks like. I would not have the books separated to Jewish books and general books. It was an important thing for us that the books will sleep together, like in the Nutcracker, that at night when they open and they dance, they will talk to each other. And the teachers, and in the classroom, that the text will speak to each other, not to have this division that we have in Israel, that you learn in school, Jewish history and general history, as if the Greek, in one class, they are the good guys, and in the other class, they are the bad guys. And as the student, you don't understand. So how many Greeks were there? It couldn't be. Doesn't make sense. And try to make a rounded kind of intellectual, learned, educated Jew. And Elul was a wonderful experience, but very painful also. The two communities, broadly divided to secular and Orthodox, don't find it easy to share a space. That's a very maybe the biggest difference between being an Israeli Jew and an American Jew, because in America you are not supposed to, you don't try to rule the public space. If you want to be with egalitarian Jews, you go to this room. If you want to be conservative, you're in this room, or Orthodox, and then you can all have gefilte fish together outside. But in Israel, if the space, the public space, you are responsible for, you have to make decisions that everyone can live with. And it's very hard not to always let the fruest common denominator rule everyone, which is usually what happens in the army, in hospitals, in El Al. Everybody eats what the fruest person on the plane will eat. And I'm thinking, I'm here for a week, I'm thinking that vegan is the new glatt kosher. We'll make everyone eat vegan, and I want to see the ultra-Orthodox eating without anything. Anyway, Rabin was assassinated. I was really startled, shocked, and I decided to go back to Tel Aviv, to go back to the community that I left because I thought it's not spiritual enough or not sophisticated enough Jewishly, but after all these years, I felt that I want to go back to something solid and clear, that that there's democracy and that you don't kill someone because of ideology. And I came back to Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv at the time was very non-Jewish, it's like New York and Los Angeles. It was more a city of culture, a city of movies, a city of writings and poets and so on. All the Jewish institutions are along Emek Refaim. When you visit, I'm sure you know them all. And we got scholarships from almost every second building in Jerusalem is a Jewish institution that gives you a scholarship. Tel Aviv was not full of that. There was a beginning of reform and conservative movement, but Israelis are much more Catholic Jews. And the American conservative and reform movements are much more Protestant Jews. There's a difference. I'm saying Catholic Jews, like in Catch 22, he says the church he doesn't go to is Catholic. The synagogue Israelis don't go to is Orthodox. And so it was very difficult in the beginning for the pluralistic movements to invite people in. Today it's much better. I came back to Tel Aviv and I founded Alma, which was my try to build a liberal arts college like you have in this country, as opposed to the university in Israel that is according to the German tradition, something that you study a profession, you study one field, you don't get this rounded kind of liberal education. And I tried to draw in the people that are building Israeli culture. And luckily, because Israel is not so big and because, Baruch Hashem, I don't know why, we were able to attract really very famous musicians and artists and writers and so forth. And they came to study what is theirs with no strings attached and no we didn't ask them to become anything or to do anything with it. And it went into their art or into their work, and many new lyrics, songs, new music, film, television came out, and the public space, the Israeli culture, kind of how do you call it, when there's a movie and there's a soundtrack, started being or became much more Jewish, much richer in Jewish notions, heroes, echoes, not just biblical. Until recent, maybe 30 years, it was only biblical. That's what the Zionist revolution was going forward and saying that we are really biblical Jews. And we tried to say this part of us that was rabbinic or was in the diaspora is a very important part of us. We're not going to let go of it. We can't go forward if we don't know the past. We are ignorant in such a basic part of who we are, and there's no way to build anything on ignorance. Ignorance is always weakness. It's never power. And I understood after all of this work in culture, I had a television show called HaCheder, and I used to study, it was a text show as opposed to a talk show. I used to bring one text every week to this rounded table that would move and invite two famous people to study with me, and it was broadcasted on the air. And again, Israel is a small country. You can invite anyone and they come, the prime minister or famous people from television or artists, and it was beautiful. And one day, my guest was Yair Lapid. I didn't know him before. He wrote in the paper, he was very famous, and he was on television. And we became friends after we had a quarrel during the program, which is the way Jews become friends. And then we went on studying together. He wanted to write a book about biblical heroes, and we became friendly. And he said, I want to go into politics. It was strange because he had everything. He was very well off. He was very famous, very popular. Why do you need to go and get the headache of everyone hating you in politics? But he said, I love this country. Things are going wrong. I want to go in. I said, I really appreciate it. Good people should go to politics. I'll support you any way I can. And he said, what do you mean you'll support me? You're coming with me. And I said, no way, I don't know. I'm not interested in politics. I don't know anything about it. I'm an educator. I'll put it in short. about a year, or he spoke about it for 7 years, but when he was starting to be serious and he built Yesh Atid as a party, I kind of tried to avoid him for a few months, but then there were elections and I said I'm jumping in, and I called him up and we had coffee, and I was in the 13th place, which is not so realistic. So I was happy because I worked at the National Library and I had a wonderful job with the best amazing things that you can find there. But surprisingly, Yesh Atid got 19 seats, so I found myself in the Knesset. And finding myself in the Knesset was quite shocking. It's not exactly Jewish education, but it is in a way. So the surprising things for me were, first of all, that the people in the Knesset are much smarter than I thought, and much less, the way they are portrayed by the papers and by television is really very terrible. And I didn't find terrible people there. I found hardworking, smart people, some of whom I agree and many of whom I don't agree with. Not everybody is smart. There are some other people, but they are divided between all the parties. It's not that the villains are out there in one place. There are very serious people in parties that I have really no way to understand, but I couldn't not appreciate them. So that was the first surprise. And that politics is such a hard life and hard job also. I didn't know from television. It looks like they're having a good time. I felt like going to the army again. And really, you have no... But it was fascinating. It was fascinating because I didn't realize how many things are decided there. And all the people that I know, all the intellectuals and all the artists, and that we think that we are very serious and responsible citizens, but we have nothing to do or nothing to say with hundreds of decisions that are made there daily. There was a black lady from America that came to visit the Knesset one day, and she said to me, if you're not at the table, you're on the table. And that's in short the whole picture. And while I'm there, I noticed, I learned, I investigated and I learned that 2.7 billion shekel a year are spent on Jewish life, on Jewish education, on Jewish buildings, on Jewish programming, on Jewish activities. You can guess how much of it is spent on secular or non-Orthodox Jewish life. Nothing. All the money, so everybody pays taxes. Israelis pay up to 50, maybe even more, % of everything they make goes to taxes. Out of these taxes, 2.7 billion every year are spent on Jewish life, and it's supposed to be coming back to you. But it goes to the chief rabbinate that does not appreciate our way of Jewish life as valid. So you cannot marry there, you cannot bury your dear ones with them, you cannot go do bar mitzvah with them, you cannot. So the money goes to them, and you that gave the money stays with no option of Jewish life that fits your ideals, your way of thinking. And so when we try to build those places like Alma and Elul, there are about 100 places that are called Jewish Renewal or Jewish Renaissance in Israel that are trying to study and not be ignorant. And then in Alma, I started, for example, Tikkun Leil Shavuot, a whole night study session, the night of Shavuot, like traditionally is done in the synagogue, but I did it outside in cultural centers, and it became so big that we went to the Tel Aviv Museum of Art, and we had 3,000 people all night till the morning studying in all the galleries and all the rooms of the museum. And there was art and there was music, and it was so lovely. But things like that have to go across the ocean and fundraise in order to make it possible, because the money that I pay for taxes will never come to it because it's not Orthodox. Same goes for new programs that started happening on Shabbat and communities, praying communities that are not Orthodox and not affiliated to movements. Of course, the Reform and conservative rabbis and synagogues are not funded by the government. And I felt that is just can't go on like this. And I started legislating, trying to legislate. At the time, Yair Lapid became the Minister of Finance. Shai Piron, my friend, an Orthodox rabbi, very, very open and pluralistic, was the Minister of Education. And we said, let's try and change this. And then I learned how difficult it is, even if that's your job in life, and you really want to make your boss happy, and you have a minister backing you, and you have 19 seats in the Knesset, still there's not enough political power, not enough voice that cares about the Jewish identity of the state in the Knesset. Most of the Israelis vote either for economy questions or for security. The question of what is the identity of the state is a question that is not considered very high in the hierarchy. Someone has to take that word out of the... It's not fair. No. Anti-Semitism. To put two R's, one after the other. בקיצור, so what I learned is not only that the ultra-Orthodox, of course, are against anything that will give us part of the power, part of the money, but the secular parties, the Labour Party, the Likud Party, just couldn't care less. And they go along that traditional Catholic Jewish way of the authentic Jew is the ultra-Orthodox Jew. Although he doesn't see them as Jews, but if there's something important, it's like every Israeli Jewish family, if somebody dies, and God forbid, and you sit Shiva, nobody knows what to do. So there's always a cousin, an Orthodox cousin, and he comes and he says all kinds of things, get up, sit down, cover the window, cover the mirrors, and everybody is like so embarrassed in knowing nothing, or the Pesach Seder. I don't know how it is in American Jewish families, but in my family, really very intelligent people, all physicians and scientists, nobody understands a word in the Haggadah. And it's like 60 years that we get together, you drive 4 hours in bumper to bumper, and you sit together with your family for 2 hours, and nobody understands a word. And the idea of Pesach is such a beautiful idea of having a symposium about freedom. There's nothing more beautiful and spiritual and lovely that could happen, and it's completely missed out because nobody speaks Aramaic, but traditionally we'll say the words that we said last year, and there's a few jokes there, I won't get into it, but all the Israelis know that it sounds like all kinds of... So my 65-year-old brothers are making jokes that they made when they were 8. And nothing, there's no accumulation of like, why don't we take this, if we drove all this way, and it'll take time until we'll get the food anyway, let's talk about something interesting. I mean, and this is missed for so many years. So much, like the Tikkun Leil Shavuot, that when it started happening, I saw how many people are doing it. It's now spread all over the country. And I brought it to New York when I founded Alma New York. And it's still happening at the JCC in the Upper West Side. And there are thousands of people there. So I realized that the renewal of the Jewish tradition and Jewish learning and Jewish spirituality and Judaism is possible, and people want meaningful life and life cycle events and calendar events, and it's about time to do it. But it's like in feminism, there's not enough awareness to make people vote and say to their politicians, this is important to me. Like American Jews that would go on supporting Israel and giving their funding to a state that says back to them, you are not really Jews, your rabbis are not rabbis, and your conversion is not conversion. And why does this go on? I just don't get. And so I try to legislate. I'll give like 2 examples. I think, where's Rebecca? I don't know what the time is. I'm okay? Yofi, because I want to try and show you how political work is really, for me, exactly the same work of my educational work and what I believe that we should go on doing together. And this is something that Jews all over the world should do together. It's not, Israel is too precious to leave it only to Israelis. Like Judaism is too precious to leave it only to Orthodox people. It belongs to everyone together. And it only, I believe, exists in the right way when different voices speak together. I don't want a completely secular country. I want to be together. So, first thing I tried to legislate was against a law, a very dangerous law that is on the table now, that is called Chok HaLeom, the national law. And this legislation suggests that in cases where democracy and Judaism have any kind of clash between them, the Jewish values will always be dominant. I think it's a very dangerous law, and it's very dangerous to democracy. You can't say that anything is above. Those 2 values can go together, do go together. When Israel is the homeland of all Jews in the world, as it says in the Declaration of Independence. And my take on it was, instead of this national law, to bring the Declaration of Independence that was signed in 1947, that says Israel is Beit Leumi L'Am HaYehudi Be'eretz Israel. Israel is a homeland, a national homeland for the Jewish people in the land of Israel. And it says in the declaration, complete equality to all citizens with no difference of dat, geza v'min, religion, race, and gender. And I tried to make that the opening, the preface of our constitution to give it some validity of, you can't make it mamash legislation because it's not written as law, it's more of a document, but to go back to classic document, something that we all agreed on and bring it back. I think the last government dissolved because of that. It's very sad that it dissolved, but I think that the good side of it is that the identity of the state, the question, what kind of state is this? Is it a religious Jewish state, like some people say? They say, Medina Yehudit, Jewish state, so it has to be religious. But when they said Jewish state, they mean homeland of the nation, the Jewish people. And there's a game there with the same word, Medina Yehudit, but 2 different meanings. So the question of what kind of state is it is a question that is now very warm and alive and scary in many ways. There are people that talk about building the temple again, and they are not theoretical. They have built all the equipment for the temple. They talk about really building a temple. They sacrificed a lamb in last Pesach. This is very scary. The Middle East can blow up on something like that if the Temple Mount suddenly will host another. And also Jewishly, you don't go back to sacrificing animals. We are vegan now. You don't go back. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai left Jerusalem, and after the destruction of the temple, Rabbinic Judaism is something that is going forward to something else, to prayers instead of animals, to scholars instead of priests, to the study, to the Bet Midrash. And you can't go backwards. And this is something that I see on Facebook and so on. It's not something that is very marginal and you don't think you shouldn't take seriously. It's very serious. Things that happen in the Muslim world happen also in the Jewish world. The world is going to some kind of radical, extreme religious way, and we should be very strong also politically, understand that this is a cultural war, that you have to be prepared and strong when you go in. Although you don't want to destroy the other side, you want to live together with it, but you have to have a voice. Then last year was the year of Shemitah. Shemitah, the 7th year, like Shabbat, the 7th day is a day of rest. The 7th year in the Bible is a year that you let the land rest and you take a sabbatical. It's a very beautiful concept, both in ecology, to let the land rest, and in human life, not to be slaves of our work and run after our iPhone all the time, cell phone all the time. And the biblical concept goes on and describes the Yovel every 49 years as a year where everyone gives back all their belongings, like in Monopoly. You give back the hotels and the houses, you get 200 shekel, and good luck, you start again. That is something that nobody ever acted on, but it's an amazing, radical sustainability concept, that you are not what you own. You are not the money that you have, because you're not going to take it with you anyway. So don't take it so seriously. 50 years you were rich, enough. Now you have another 50 years, maybe you'll be poor. You will have other experiences in life. Anyway, it was the year of Shemitah. In Israel, concepts like this are not just theoretical and spiritual, they are very real. There's 70 million shekel that are put aside to act on Shemitah in the agriculture. For people, for farmers that don't want to work on Shemitah, the country, the government, pays them their allowance for the year and they let their land rest. As it happens with politicians and with Jews and with human beings, the 70 million doesn't only go to those farmers, because there are not so many farmers that really do this. And some money goes to buy vegetable and fruit outside of the country, and there's all kinds of things happening with that. And okay, that's what they do. I thought, why don't we take another concept from the Bible that is really amazing? The concept that every 7 years, debt is forgiven. In the biblical world, when people lived off their field, if someone got sick or a child got sick and somebody became poor, they had to sell their field or sell themselves as slaves to someone else that owns now the field. And they then sold children to be slaves. And the Bible hates slavery. And to be a free person is one of the basic concepts. So every 7 years, they forgave these debts and let these people go back to their field to be free people. Today, you can say, the Bible was so many years ago, it's not relevant. Today, so many people are in debt. So many young people take loans, and then there's no way to give it back, and they lose their credit, and it's a very hard life to live without credit. And I said to myself, it was something that the Jewish renewal world was talking about. Let's try on a sabbatical year, do forgiving of debt. What I did is a big project together with non-profit organizations that educate families that are in debt to learn how to control their budget. They have to open the books to them and to be very you have to really take it very seriously. There's someone that works with the family for something like 8-9 months. And when they see that the family is now balanced and they both work and they don't spend and they understand what they do, and the only thing that keeps them from healthy economical life is that debt that is like on their back, then they go together with them to the bank or to the company, whoever they owe, and they make a kind of an agreement, a kind of a settlement. Some money the family pays back, some is forgiven, and some is divided for a few years that they can pay back, and they get back their credit. I talked to Professor Eugene Kandel, who was the advisor of the government in economy. He worked with me on, I worked with him. He's an amazing man. I worked with him on legislation about books, about the book, about selling books in Israel, and we did a good job, and there was a party by the publishers, and then he asked me if I have another maybe idea he would like to work with me, and I said, I have no economic ideas, and then I remembered Shemitah, and I told him, there is an idea, maybe you'll laugh at me, it's biblical, and he said, no, it's a wonderful idea, it's very healthy for economy, it brings about, it builds optimism and some kind of health. I will help you. And he helped me a lot, and all the bank managers, all the heads of the Israeli banks, except for one, came on board and said it's very good for them, because this lost debt, these people that are called in their terms lost debt, is money that they're not going to get anyway, but they pay lawyers to chase these people, and they don't have them as customers. In these programs, they can stop paying the lawyers, they can get them back as customers, and they even get something of the debt. So they all came on board, and many companies, phone companies and electrics and so on, came on board, and the new president, Rivlin, did a big opening in his official home residency, and I was very happy, and I legislated that in the next Shemitah, in the ruling of Shemitah, not only the agriculture will be taken care of, but there will be some kind of economic forgiving of debt. My optimism was premature, because later when we needed to vote second time, so it will really be going into the Sefer HaChukim, the laws, suddenly I saw that something is not going right. I went to the head of the committee and asked, why doesn't he bring it about to vote? He was from the ultra-Orthodox party, and he said, I'm sorry, the chief rabbi said that I can't go on with this. Now, the chief rabbi does not give orders to legislators, but he does. And I said, why is he against it? We worked together. I gave them the law like 9 months before for any corrections, and I corrected, and I fixed, and I changed. And anyway, that was the end of it, and I learned again that the people that have today the power and the money and their hand is on the control, I don't know how to say, they are not very happily going to invite us to share, although we learned in kindergarten here that sharing is caring, but they did not go to preschool here. And in order to, and I had to let all these families go. There were thousands of families that started this process, and again, I understood, and maybe I will stop after this, or maybe I'll talk a little bit about Shabbat. I understood again that the world of Jewish learning is in some way, has a role of building a language and building an awareness, both in Israeli Jews and in diaspora Jews, that this topic is a topic of politics, and that we cannot let ourselves say that politics is not important, or only the bad guys go there and you can't trust them anyway. Each one of us has an obligation to speak to whoever we give our voice to and say, this is important to us. And when American Jews have deal with the Israeli Prime Minister or with Israel in any way, they should say, if you do not respect the way that we are Jews, we're not playing with you. It's a simple, politics is about pushing to whatever you want. That's the game. It's a fair game. It's not allowed. That's what we're supposed to do. And we are usually leaving the whole floor to the others. And then we complain. We don't understand why we don't get funding. Because we never fought for it. Because what the secular or the non-religious parties stand for, or the people that they bring into the Knesset, don't deal with that. And that usually happens because we are too ignorant to even have a stand. And to say, no, I read it, I know the book, doesn't have to be this way. That's not what's written in the book. But in order to stand strong, you have to know. And it's all, so in that way, I wanted to say that the way from my own ignorance, trying to learn and to be more whole myself, and then trying to build institutions for other people like me that want to study in the secular world or the non-affiliated or the non-halachic world, to first of all not be ignorant and learn. And then from learning, you begin to build new options of Jewish life that are meaningful and that are rich and that we see that many people come and enjoy. And from there, I see that you can affect much more than just having a nice seder in your home. You can really have a state. And that is the sweetness of Zionism, that you have a state that is like a home. And that you can bring church to state, that you can have music on the radio that is special on holidays, and you feel in the street that Saturday is coming. It's not like here that you only can feel it at home or in the synagogue. You feel it on television, you feel it in the public space. The birds sing differently on Shabbat in Israel. And it's a sweet feeling. It has a price. You have to fight other people to decide which bird will sing which song. But it's sweet. You don't have to, you are marinated in Jewishness, even if you're not religious. And that is, for me, one of the gifts, one of the treasures of being an Israeli Jew. So I will stop here, and I'll be very happy to hear your thoughts or get questions.
And all right, I'm going to move around.
I don't have a question. I just would like to thank you for your comments. I have said for many years that if the secular, non-religious Jews do not study Talmud, they can't enter into the discussion. So I want to thank you for what you're doing. And I should also let you know that we have a Hallel Shavuot here in Berkeley that brings together a very, very large swath of our community.
I'm going to move it around for questions.
Hi, thank you very much for your comments. I enjoyed, as a matter of fact, Elul for many years while I was living in Yerushalayim. And when I was there the year, of course, that Rabin was assassinated. And so I felt badly when it ended. It was a marvelous experience. Could you elaborate just a little bit more on the power of the chief rabbi and how that was a political no-go for your very interesting proposal? And I don't quite understand why you, as a politician within the Knesset that has a framework unto itself, was able to be thwarted by a person who was not in the Knesset per se.
Very good question. It should not. He should not have. He's not supposed to have power in the Knesset. But he calls the ultra-Orthodox people in the Knesset. And they have the power to stop. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be done like that. The whole thing there was, you watch television series about politicians, things that is not always done the way they're supposed to be done. But the question is not what they do. They don't want to share the power and the money. But why do our people don't stand up? Why does Bibi Netanyahu not stand up and say, my economic advisor thought it's a great idea, let them do it. He doesn't have, someone said here before, when you said it, when you don't study, you don't feel confident to enter the conversation. And so they dominate the conversation. And also secular people don't think it's important yet. It's like 30 years ago, when you would say something in feminism, many women would say that it's not important to them. They would be embarrassed. That's the feeling today in liberal Judaism. There's a minority that is pushing forward, and many people that don't get it yet. But feminism makes me optimistic that it's a matter of time, because it's true, it's real.
Hi, over here. I'm curious if you could share with us names of Israeli intellectuals, writers, professors that you feel are having an important impact, and if they're also from outside of Israel. But I'm really curious of who the Israelis that seem to be writing and having the sort of effect you value are.
It's a lovely question. I'll just, out of my head, it's not organized, but first of all, there is a woman down here in the Bay Area, Maya Arad, who writes amazing Israeli fiction, and for me, she's very important. The people around Alma, Moshe Halbertal is important. Yoni Rechter, Judith Ravitz, Kobe Oz, the musicians, Tzibi Geval, Ari Abramson in art, heads of art schools, the people that we affect, are people that are Yair Lapid and the people in the press, Uri Shenar and people on television. Again, Israel is small. In America, if I would call Johnny Mitchell and Paul Simon, I'm not sure they would come, or Leonard Cohen. In Israel, you can call the best, and they will come. It's a shtetl. It's not so huge. They don't have like 5 people that they answer their phone. So it's not that one person is important, but the people that were the voice of the Israel that has nothing to do with Judaism are now speaking Jewish. And there's all kinds of interesting integrations that are not all the same. Some people take it back to tradition. Some people take it to radical new things. Some people, all kinds of things happen. And I'm very happy when different things happen. But the language is rich. We are living in such a deep language with such a lot of echo, and we are now beginning to appreciate it. So Amos Oz and Fania Oz are into it. David Grossman has started studying in Elul in 80-something, and he studies every week. And then when someone like that writes, you feel it. It's like, it's full of different flavors that echo, that's culture, that it touches and it echoes from generation to generation.
Can you explain a little bit what's the difference between teaching the Bible and teaching Judaism? What's how is teaching Judaism in the schools? Like you said, I grew up in Israel and I learned the Bible, but how do you teach Judaism?
Judaism is a word that any different person interprets differently. But what I said is the difference between Bible and the rabbinic literature, which is Mishnah and Talmud and Kabbalah and Chassidut. David Ben-Gurion and that generation decided to be new Jews, to live back at home in the diaspora, the old kind of Judaism of Halakha and rabbinic Judaism and the study of Talmud, and they wanted to make a different culture that is only based on Bible. And that's what we learned, a lot of Bible, which is beautiful. and very good for our language, but it's not the whole story. It's like someone would hide away some of your cousins, and you're not allowed to talk to them. It's the other cousins are also nice, but they are part of your family. And that's what I feel was done. And we are trying to heal that. We're trying to reclaim the pieces of our own identity that were lost, that were taken out. Now, I have a lot of love and appreciation to those first Zionists that did that. They had their reasons. But today, I think in this case, we have to go back and fix that and learn.
Let's return to the political sphere for a moment.
It's all politics.
That's right, exactly. And the question of who's sitting at the table that can be part of the decision-making process. And it seems to me that one of the difficulties is in terms of political leadership that attracts the attention of this broader segment of society in terms of charisma, in terms of seeing as a viable option to, let's call a spade, the Netanyahu leadership and the impact of the religious and the non-religious right wing. Is there hope that such people exist or will grow so that we have a viable set of options? And then the last part of it, what do you see as your own role at this juncture in terms of the political process?
About my own role, I'm waiting for instructions. When I'll get them, I'll know. But about the general idea, I'm not looking for another hero. Instead of Netanyahu, there'll be Netanyahu. It's not like that. I think the question, it goes to the people. If the people will want a change, there will be a change. It's not about one leader that does magic. We are not in an age of magic. We're in an age of the young people writing on Facebook or going out to the streets and putting tents and saying this is not going to stay. And then leadership rises. It's not. That's one of the things that changed. It's not Moshe Rabbeinu. It's not the spirit of this generation. They don't even have the patience for people with too much charisma. Charisma of today has to be a different kind of charisma. And what I am so frustrated about is that people don't have a voice, and that American Jews, for example, you America, holds Israel in many sensitive places, and they can easily say, it doesn't cost anything to say, please, when our rabbis come to Israel, you will call them rabbi. What are we asking? And he doesn't do that. Why don't they do that? Lama lo? Why don't you tell them, my dear leader, if you, when you go to AIPAC, don't say that for me. I'm not giving my donation. It's always going back to the private one citizen. The power is in your hands. And now I'm more optimistic. I know that you think the right way. And also, why is the right wing and the religious right so strong? Again, because they are not ignorant. And they say that what they think is what's written. And when you can rise and say, no, excuse me, I'm also learned, and this is not what, it's at least a dispute. It's a different game.
They're also organized, and that is the power of the Rebbe. That he has an infrastructure that he can bring to push the agenda at that political
But the Labour Party is also organized, but it's organized around other issues. And the Likud is also organized around other issues. Socialism and economy or defense was looked at as the most important thing. And I think we should understand that identity, who we are, is very important.
Yes, I have a question that follows a little bit on what you have just spoken about, and that is, I need to tell you a little bit about my story in order to be able to frame the question. I was born in Poland after Second World War. My father was extremely religious. He was very, very Orthodox, and that's the kind of life I lived at home in a communist country that was not only anti-religious in general, but anti-Jewish religious even more so. So it was sort of, okay, it won't be too long. And so I basically grew up as an atheist. And I lived that way after coming here in '69, and it was maybe 15, 20 years or so before I wound up at the Sanders Theater in Cambridge, which is a very large venue, on a Rosh Hashanah service. And I was just kind of by mistake, and I was astounded to see all the Harvard professors and medical school professors, et cetera, there at that type of event. And that's what sort of reawakened my interest in what is really Judaism. And because I became so separated from it. Subsequently, trying to go to different places, Orthodox, traditional, conservative, reform, none of it felt like home. So my question is this: is there a kind of native movement in Israel that is not Orthodox, the people seek some venue, some way of spiritual and religious life that is also not importing American types of Jewish institutions like Reform Judaism or traditional Judaism, etc., but is really native to the country and to what people there are interested in?
Thank you. I think will be, yeah. I think that something important is happening. There's a kind of conglomerate of joining between the liberal movements and the secular, what I call Hebrew culture or Renaissance or renewal of Jewish life. Some of it is religious, some of it is spiritual, some of it is cultural. But we all have to work together in order to have enough voice to stand the other voices who are very clear and have no questions. I just want to say about Poland and what you mentioned. I think the Russian Revolution that tried to kill God in one blow, like the Turkish Revolution of Ataturk that tried to throw away Islam and make Turkey only a democratic modern country, like David Ben-Gurion and that generation that tried to throw away traditional Judaism and make Israel completely secular. Anything that is blowing that way will blow the other way. People, and that's why I'm so appreciative of the Sephardic way that is less learned and less sophisticated, but was an evolution and not a revolution. Revolutions, and I think we are paying for it now in the whole world. Something that is the Kuhn swings back. And I think that we were, it's a kind of a cultural sin, and you pay for it. And that we need to be much more humble and be delicate, be sensitive when we work with culture, and not be so. It's so adolescent. It's such Israel was so. I feel, and that when I grow up, I don't appreciate this black and white, and I think the West also in the way that we talk about Islam today. There's a message of speaking with much more dignity, with much more respect and honor. Otherwise, it will swing back.
So
I think
there are two questions right here. If we can keep them really brief, maybe they can both be asked, and then you can respond and conclude.
The question I have is, what is the role of the media in all this?
I realize it's kind of a broad question, but I just want to understand, what do you think should be the balance between the Jewishness and the democratic nature of the state? Because I know that you mentioned the taxes, and they go to the Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, but that in a way helps maintain the Jewishness of the state and everything, the history that it was fought for. So, and then kind of if you take that away, who's going to maintain all the, the Jewishness, because there's the seculars and.
It's a bit frustrating because what I tried to say here for a whole hour is that they are not the only keepers of our culture, and that they should keep their tradition, but we are keeping the gift that we inherited just like them. But I guess we need to talk a little more, and we won't do it now. I don't see a clash between democratic and Jewish values. I don't see that there is a problem. It is Jewish and democratic. There must be complete equality to all citizens in Israel. Israel was not built as a non-democratic state, except for the law of return that says that any Jew can come whenever they want and not stand in line like others. The question that you asked is a very important question. I think the media has tremendous effect, and that because the people that are running the Israeli media themselves are ignorant, there is this concept that if I don't know it, it's not important. It must be not important. If they don't know it, and there's no way to quickly learn it, it's not something that you can learn in a semester. And so they think it's not important. And it will take time until there will be a generation that is more into that you will see it in the press. What you see today is the same picture of the politics, is that it's not ours, that they will keep the heritage and we will do other important things. And there's not enough awareness that it's our responsibility to learn where we came from and to go forward, and that Judaism is not a museum that you go and see what happened before. You have to act within it. It has to be always renewed. On the base of what happened, it has to be new, and they don't do that. They are museum keepers, and we need Judaism to be alive.
Wow, on that note, I think please join me in thanking Ruth Calderon for being here.